Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on this transition evening for you as parents for 2022 from students moving from year 6 to 7. My name is Mr. McDonald. I'm the progress leader for year 7, and I'm also joined by Miss Danielle Clark, who is the head of year 6 just now. So the format of the evening, we're going to just do a quick introduction from myself. Miss Clark will then run through a primary perspective. I'll talk a little bit about introduction to secondary, and then the transition process itself, and then we'll also have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So welcome, thank you again for joining us. The purpose of this evening is to inform you of what your child will be going through over the next 2 months, and then moving into secondary in August. So we've got lots of stuff planned for your children, to make sure they have the best transition process possible, so that they're well acquainted with what happens in secondary school, and we sort of try and get past those initial nerves that there always is moving into secondary school. This should give you an idea of what the students will be doing when they join the secondary school. We should be looking at the curriculum. We'll also be looking at what subjects they'll be doing, what the school day looks like, and what's expected of them as secondary students as well, which is really important. We'll go through some FAQs that we've had before from these webinars. I think it's really important that we have a base of these, so we can answer any initial worries or concerns you might have for your children moving up into secondary school. I'll speak a little bit about pressure as well, something that's it's fairly manifested itself through the pandemic, and I'm sure everyone will understand that in all forms of life, not just students in schools, but adults as well. And I think it's really important that we talk about that. We'll also talk about our school ethos, which is pride, and we'll go through that and what that means to each student. They've also been introduced to that this year in primary. And then we will aim to answer any questions that you might have, which you can pop in the chat box on the right-hand side of the webinar. So I'm just going to pass over to Miss Clark, who's going to give you a little bit of an introduction to a primary perspective and what that looks like moving forward. So if you just bear with me 1 second.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Danielle Clark, head of year 6, as Michael mentioned, and we're really excited to be able to share the transition process with everyone, and it's a really exciting time for year 6. And I've been a part of this process for the last 3 years, and it's always really went smoothly, and the children have really enjoyed, especially the last term, preparing for going up to secondary. And as Michael said about the pride ethos, we try and incorporate that into all of the learning. It's been really nice that it's been introduced into year 6 quite recently, and we've been trying to initiate the children to be more independent throughout the year, especially coming up to year 7, where they'll be less dependent on the teachers, and they'll be less dependent on yourselves as parents. So in that in mind, we want to ease their minds as well. So we've had some of the year 7s come down with Mr. McDonald to just give their experience of transition. And that was a really nice thing, because it gave the year 7s a chance to reflect on how they coped with the move and try to answer any questions for our boys and girls, and they really enjoyed that. So they're really excited to move on to the next phase, which will be the taster lessons that we're going to be introducing next week. That's maths, English and science. So this will give them a little introduction into the transition days that will be happening later on it's going to be the last week in May, I think. So yeah, we've been discussing that with the boys and girls, and it's just a really good way for them to smoothly transition from year 6 to year 7. And there's a few things coming up in term 3 that we're celebrating the end of year 6 and starting a brand new school next door. So a few things coming up, upcoming events are the GL assessments that will be happening next week. So this will help us to kind of see the progress, and it'll allow us to assess what we have, the strengths in the children and what in year 7 what they'll be working on. And we're really excited to have the chance to actually have trips this year. Obviously with the situation, we couldn't take the children on the usual Oman residential trip, which obviously is a big adventure. So we thought we would make our own adventure week coming up in term 3, and we've just started to discuss it with the boys and girls, and we're on our way to planning a few fun trips, and the PE department are also getting involved and having an adventure day where the boys and girls will be doing lots of fun activities through the day instead of obviously the Oman trip, which we unfortunately couldn't go to. And then a couple of more exciting things is the year 6 class party that will be happening on the 2nd of June, where the boys and girls will get to celebrate the end of year. And lastly, the year 6 graduation, which will be taking place in the Hamilton campus on the 19th of June, which is a really exciting event for the children, and they really look forward to it, and they can celebrate their success and do a little performance to everyone, and we'll send you the information for that near the time. But it's just a really lovely event every year, and this year thankfully we're able to do it live instead of online. So yeah, it's a really fun time. It's a very busy time, but it's also a really fun and exciting time. So I'll pass you back over to Mr. McDonald, and he'll let you know what's going to happen when the boys and girls are moved up to year 7.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Clark. That was really helpful, really informative. So as you can see, lots and lots of exciting things going ahead for the students as they come into their last few weeks, as it is, of primary school. And hopefully they'll really enjoy, especially with COVID starting to ease off a little bit, and we're able to start doing some more exciting things. And I think that's something they'll really look forward to. Okay, so moving into the transition process itself, Miss Clark's obviously touched on a couple of these things already. I visited the classes for about 30 minutes, and I've also brought down some students with me to do a little presentation of their transition experience last year to each tutor group, which I think was really helpful. And it was something I actually stepped back from when the students did the presentation, because I think it's really important that I can talk till the cows come home about what transition's like and what's really, but it's much more important that they get a student's point of view on what it looks like for from someone who was in their shoes the year before. The end of this month, we should have some secondary school tours being conducted by our year 10 prefects for each tutor group, and we'll look to get that organised so they get a lay of the land really. They can see where to go. It's because secondary is basically a mirror building of primary, so once they get a couple of times around, they should be pretty used to what happens, and they'll find their way around. We're moving into taster lessons, as Miss Clark touched on, next Monday. So the secondary teachers have been putting together some short 25-minute lessons for them, just to give them a very brief introduction to what's expected, some little fun things happening in the lesson in the core subjects. So they'll go through that next week. They'll also get a little introduction to the secondary library as well, and how they get books out from there. Because as Miss Clark says, independence is a massive thing that we focus on in year 7, because we really want them to start taking responsibility for their actions, responsibility for their property and things like that. So I think it's definitely a good start for them to get in this term and see these things as we move on. And then finally, we've got our transition week, or it's transition 2 days that we have. So they'll have 2 full immersion days in secondary school. The year 6 pupils will get to spend some time in secondary. They'll also have a current year 7 student shadowing them. So they'll be walking them to their lessons so they don't get lost. And again, I think that's important, rather than relying on their class teacher or their TA to do that for them. So, lots and lots of exciting things, we've done already and moving forward. I think it's something they can really look forward to. And I think we, at Park House, we do a really good job of making sure that our students are well prepared to move into secondary school. And I think that's sort of been highlighted last year, even looking at that in the COVID times, we still managed to make sure that they got some secondary time and some lessons with their teachers. So I think, you know, we do a really good job of that, and you know, we can assure you that your children are in safe hands. Okay, so I did briefly touch at the start about, you know, some frequently asked questions, and this is one of the biggest things for me is the tutor group. In secondary school, the pupils don't have a class teacher like they do in primary school, so they'll be moving to what we have is a form tutor. They do have specialist teachers in every individual subject, but it means they'll have roughly 10 different teachers as opposed to 1 or 2 different teachers. So that form tutor becomes their focal point every morning. They're placed in the tutor group, and most of their lessons are with that particular group. The tutor group takes a lot of time to prepare and organise, and it's really important, you know, that we don't move the students from their tutor group if possible, because one of the main points that I regularly receive is that so and so would like to be in with this person, or so and so would like to be in with this person. But what we actually do is the year 6 teachers will do 2 to 3 friends, and then we'll try and mix them up as they go to secondary, because I think it's important to meet new people. There will also be new students joining externally, so it's really good for them to meet new people and, you know, develop new relationships as they will have to in life as they get older. So moving them from tutor group to tutor group is not something we're very keen on at all. You know, obviously in exceptional circumstances we'll be considering that, but not you know, not just because they're friends in that group so they would like to be there. I can promise you that we spend a lot of time organising these groups, and it is very important that once we've made them, unless there's any as I said, exceptional circumstance, we look to keep them that way. Each tutor group has a form tutor who they'll meet each morning and register with. The form tutor should be your first point of contact if you have any questions, and that'll be the form tutor will be relayed to you in the coming months, and you should have some information on that. The students also know who it'll be, and hopefully they'll be able to meet their new form tutor before the end of the year, so they can put a name to a face. All years, as I said, all year 6 tutor groups will be shuffled and entering into year 7 to accommodate the new students, give existing students a chance to make new friendships. Myself, Miss Clark and Mrs Hilton, head of primary, are all involved in the process to offer the good balance to each tutor group, and we do take into account gender, nationality, foreign language that's studied, and their friendship groups. And as I've already said, parents can't request that their child is placed in a certain tutor group, and we try not to make any amendments once the lists are finalised. Okay, so the school day is the next sort of focal point. We're slightly different to primary school, so the secondary class is as follows. So between 7:30 and 7:40, this is generally staff briefings with members of staff on duty to welcome the students to school. Between 7:40 and 8 o'clock, we have a tutor time, and there's a sort of a tutor programme of study. So once a week they might do reading, they might do a maths quiz, they'll do some current affairs, or the form tutor will choose a particular topic in the world that they can focus on, and hopefully we'll be bringing back assemblies too, and we'll look at global citizenship as well in the form time. We have 3 lessons from 8 till 10:30, and then we have a 25-minute break. Then we have a further 2 lessons till 12:35 and a second break, and finally we have 1 more lesson before the end of the school day, and then as I'm sure you already know, they'll move into extracurricular activities in secondary school, which are all happening after the school day. So another positive moving forward is that the ECAs are back, and hopefully the students are really excited to get joined in with them. The timetable, so each subject, so English and maths, have 5 lessons each. Science has 4, and MFL has 4 lessons. There's 2 lessons of history, geography, 1 history lesson, 2 computing lessons. There's 3 PE lessons per week. However, if your child is a Muslim, they'll have 2 PE lessons, and then they'll have an Islamic lesson as well, which will be matched up against PE. Then they'll have 1 lesson of art, 1 of music, 1 of Qatar history, or as we're now moving forward, called Qatar citizenship, and 1 lesson of PSHE or Islamic studies. Curriculum, I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to have a look through this. This is the different subjects and what they might be studying in year 7. As you can see, we've got the 39 weeks on there, and each subject and the normal sort of curriculum that we've been looking at. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to look through that, and then I'll rejoin you just to chat through some more stuff on that as well.
Can I just say, if anyone has any questions, I've only had one question so far. You can write in the question and answer box, and we'll try to get back to you at the end.
Okay, hopefully you've all had a little bit of time just to look through the curriculum map there. You know, they study some really interesting stuff, I think, in year 7, and I think it's a great introduction to every subject that our year 7s get. And I think that's important to remember, that it is an introduction to our subjects. It's not GCSEs for another couple of years. So really, these topics are to let our students find their feet, find where their strengths and weaknesses may lie, what subjects they like, what they don't like. You know, and over the next 3 years before they get to year 10, it gives them a good idea of the direction they might want to go in. Language choices. So as you hopefully will have seen, there was an email sent out today to collate the students' language choices. Now, pupils that have an Arabic block passport must continue with Arabic in the secondary school. That rule was brought in by the Ministry of Education and Higher Education last year, and it states that every student who's registered with the ministry with an Arabic passport must study Arabic. Now, one of the questions we get quite a lot is, you know, we have 2 passports. Whichever passport is down on your QID. So if, for example, if you hold an Egyptian passport and a Canadian passport, if you are registered on your QID with your Egyptian passport, you must study Arabic. And it would be up to you to go to the ministry and change that over if you wanted your child to study a different language. Pupils that have studied French in the primary school will need to state their preference for either French or Spanish. We can't guarantee the first choice. You know, French is normally heavily subscribed just because that's what they've been studying. But also, I think it's also good to, you know, for them to try a different language as well, because it's, you know, traveling around the world at universities are much more accessible than they used to be. I think that students are, you know, much more adventurous now when they leave school and will try different universities. So I think it's important that they, you know, they can try their hand at something new. So talking about academic success now. So in the school, the GCSE results, we've had 80 to 90% of our pupils have achieved 5 GCSEs, including English and mathematics. And 50% of those entries were grade A to A star, or 9 to 7, as it now is, which is, you know, which is a pretty good success rate. Moving into A level, 80% of our entries were grade A star to C, and 25% of those entries were grade A star to A, which is, you know, I think the school can be very proud of its academic success and what we do, and we have lots and lots of our alumni heading off to outstanding universities. You know, and studying incredible things, and you know, I don't think it's going to be too long before we see some of our students doing amazing things around the world, and I think that's something that the school can be immensely proud of. So just talking about something like success and what constitutes success, this is something I've noticed, but as I said at the start, particularly throughout the pandemic. there's a lot of anxiety in our children, and this has been magnified since we employed our well-being advisor, who's done a fantastic job managing anxiety and helping our students to establish what's important and not putting pressure on themselves, because at the end of the day, the children we're talking about tonight are 11 and 12-year-old. At no point should we be putting them under serious pressure to be doing well in exams or well in class tests, because the exams and tests we do up until the end of year 9 are purely measures of their progress. It's not it's not a life or death situation. It's the exams are not, or tests or class tests are not massively important. All we're doing is just measuring their progress and what we've taken in so far, because there's plenty of time to work with your children and make sure that they're on the right track moving forward. And it's, we always ask that you don't pressurize your child when there's tests scheduled, because it's scientifically proven that when children are less pressurized, they perform much better. And there's a lot of research, particularly recent research, that's been done on that. And as I've said already, we don't focus on test results until year 10, because that's 1 year till their GCSEs, and there's no formal exams until year 10. So one of the questions we do get a lot of is, when will the formal exams be for year 7? And the answer to that is we don't have them. We don't have formal exams in 7, 8 or 9. There may be class tests or topic tests, but it doesn't make a major difference to their overall grade. And again, their overall grade is just a measure of their progress throughout the year. And the first point on there is that every child is different. Every child has a different set of strengths and weaknesses. And I think it's important that we manage expectations that are specific to your children. So long gone are the days where we just generalize and say everyone should be getting A's, B's and C's, or everyone should be getting this to everyone should be getting a C in English and maths. But actually their creative side might be much better than the arithmetic side or their language side. So it's really important that we manage expectations and which are specific to our child. Now, we do CAP 4 tests in the first week when they move into secondary, and that gives us an idea of where the strengths and weaknesses lie, and they are pretty accurate. They give us an idea of what they might get at a GCSE in that subject. But again, that can obviously change, because there's been we were very lucky to go through a webinar where a former teacher, principal, discussed his own daughter's maths performance, and she didn't understand maths till year 10. She was bottom set. She was doing really poorly. She just didn't understand it, and then one day it clicked for her, and then she went on to study mathematics at Cambridge. So everyone's different. Everyone's different learning style. There's a different stage of learning for every child. So that's something that's really important as we move into secondary school. Our pride ethos is promoting positive behaviour. We want everything to be positive for them. We take behaviour management extremely seriously, and we've got really high expectations of all our students, both in the classroom and around the school, especially when they come into secondary school and what we want from our students. So that, as Miss Clark's obviously touched on earlier, the pride ethos is perseverance, responsibility, independence, dedication, and engagement. So we want them to, we want students in class to struggle. We want them to be, be able to persevere through difficult situations, obviously with the help of teachers, and that's what we obviously describe as good struggle. We don't want them to be in such a situation they don't want to be doing anything, but it's called good struggle because we want them to learn about perseverance. Responsibility, moving into secondary, is about managing their own stuff, managing everything else, because they'll be going from teacher to teacher. They'll go in different classrooms, so that there's a little bit of responsibility there to look after their stuff, make sure they're on time to lessons, make sure the uniform's correct, things like that. Independence, as Miss Clark touched on earlier, it's a really big thing they focus on in the last term of primary and moving into secondary is learning to become that independent young person, and doing things for themselves. Dedication speaks for itself really, and finally engagement. is something that we, that's the teaching model they're looking for in every lesson. We want students to be engaged. We want our students to challenge our teachers. We want students to challenge each other in lessons, because that makes a great classroom environment. So these things are, we've taken a long time to come up with the pride ethos and what we want from our students, and I think it's a really good thing. One of the best things I've worked in schools, in the UK and here as well. So that kind of brings us to the end of our webinar here. Please feel, at any point you can please feel free to email myself or Miss Clark. That's our email addresses there, and you can obviously watch the virtual open day on ParkHouseConnects. But as well, I've previously mentioned of talking about stuff that was that had been mentioned by parents in the past, and what we might be looking at moving forward, and what questions have been we'll look at. One of them is books. Now, obviously, 10 different teachers, 10 different lessons, there are going to be more books. I think it's one thing that we noticed, particularly this year, was that students were bringing every single book to school. So they were, they're walking around like a bit like a Sherpa, with huge backpacks on, and every book in their bag. So making sure they're independent, packing their school bag for the next day is really important. The students will also be given a planner when they come to secondary, and that has a lot of really good information in it. The school rules, for example, school day, timetable, daily planner, and that's something that we really focus on in secondary. We want them to have it out on their desk every lesson, every class, because that helps keep them organised, and they can, their homework will be in there. Another question we may have had is devices. Now, obviously, over the last couple of years, devices have been essential to learning, but as we're coming back to face-to-face learning, I wouldn't say we're phasing them out, but what I would say is that they're only visible when the teacher allows it. We don't want students walking around the corridors on their phones or with headphones in. If that does happen, they'll be confiscated, and a consequence may be issued. And speaking of consequences, that's one of the big things the students always like to ask myself or other pupils that might come and give them a tour is what is a consequence. So we have a behaviour management policy, which can be viewed on the school website, and that and that's again links back to our pride ethos and making sure that they're following that and they're keeping up to date with everything. So I think your children are in really good hands with coming to the end of their year 6 and their primary school experience, and then moving into secondary. We've got a lot of really exciting things planned for them, and we want it to be the best experience possible. I think that's something that can't be understated, because every single child matters and deserves the best opportunity to excel. So yeah, that's everything from me. Miss Clark, have we got any questions?
Yeah, we've got a few questions about the Arabic students, about taking French and Spanish. So as I'm aware, it's the ministry, as per the ministry, that Arabic students need to continue. But is there an option for that? I'm sure you can answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So Arabic students, so if you are an Arabic passport holder, and that is linked to your Qatar ID, you must study Arabic. If you hold dual nationality, and you didn't want your child to study Arabic, you wanted them to study French or Spanish, then you would have to go to the ministry and have the passport changed on the Qatar ID. A student with an Arabic passport will not have their school document attested when they leave by the ministry unless they have studied Arabic to GCSE.
Okay, and just about choosing Spanish or French, is there meant to be a name and class column?
So at the moment, all they just need to do is to have their name, and if that form needs to be resent, we can resend that out with name and class. But it should just be name and then their choice. But when they send in the form, their name will appear on it automatically. But I'll double check that, and if we need to, we'll resend it tomorrow.
I think about sets in maths and science. Are they put into sets of ability or? is it?
No, so what happens is our students aren't actually settled until year 9, and they will go to those classes in their tutor group. And what happens is extension work will be issued by the teacher if the student's performing, particularly well, or there'll be also intervention work given, and there'll also be monitoring as well. So, we don't set the students purely because, when they're 11 and 12, we don't want to put pressure on them. We don't want them to feel like, oh, I'm in the bottom set, and then that manifests itself. So I think by not setting them till year 9, we're giving them that opportunity to learn, and it also helps some of our weaker students perhaps in each subject. The stronger students help them, and we do look to in our seating plans and our classroom management profile to make sure that they are well accommodated for.
And I know that you mentioned, Mr. McDonald, about devices, that you're trying to kind of phase that out unless asked for. There's just a few questions about, are they required to have a laptop or tablet for any lessons?
Some lessons, particularly maths, they do a lot of their work online, so it is very handy for them to have a device for those lessons. And again, some teachers and some subjects do prefer to use them for their textbooks, so they aren't carrying them around, which I think is obviously a good thing for their backs at that age. So it is very helpful for them to have a device. But if they don't, and it's a struggle to get one, please let us know, and we can see what we can do there.
I think that was it. I think the last one was just about digital copies of books, if they're available in secondary.
Some subjects have digital copies of books that we can get sent out on the Teams. So each subject will have a Teams page and all documents sort of are uploaded to that normally. So again, that's a device situation. But as I said, if you've got any pressing worries or pressing concerns about that, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I can help you out with that situation.
Okay. The kind of last one I've got here is about parents' meetings, if they meet the form tutor, or is it just subject teachers?
They can ask to meet their form tutors. So we have 2 parents' evenings a year for each year group moving into secondary. So they'll have one normally in the autumn term, or the August to December time, and then they'll have a further one. It's normally at the end of term 2, but it just very much depends on Ramadan, and it'll depend on external exams or mock exams as well. So that is normally released at the start of the year, so there's plenty of advance warning for that as well, and they can choose to book in with their form tutor if needs be.
Yeah, I think that's it. Mac or PC, I don't think it matters, does it?
No, it doesn't matter at all. So Teams can be loaded onto either. That's no problem at all.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions we've got just now.
Okay. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Ms. Clark. So, as I've already said, if at any point you need to discuss anything with either Ms. Clark or myself, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us through the email address on the screen. And thank you very much for attending this evening. I hope it's been helpful and informative to you, and we're really excited to graduate your children into secondary.
Yeah, it's exciting. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.